welcome back to We Talk Talent. We are thrilled to kick off the sixth season of a highly popular interview series where we uncover stories, strategies, and solutions driving the future of talent, HR innovations, and leadership. I'm Abhik Roy, Associate Content and Community from ETHRWorld, and it's my delight to introduce our first guest of the season, Kameshwari Rao, Global Chief People Officer from Publicis Sapient. A visionary industry leader, she has been a pivotal force behind Publicis Sapient's people agenda. Over her remarkable 19-year journey with the organization, she has played an instrumental role in shaping its identity as an employer of choice and a trusted partner in digital business transformation. Beginning her career with the esteemed Tata Group of companies, Kameshwari has amassed over 35 years of rich professional experience and deep expertise in working closely and strategically with people. Known for her unwavering passion for diversity, equity, inclusion, and corporate social responsibility, she pictures workplaces as hubs of courage and resilience where individuals are empowered to flourish for years to come. Hi, Kameshwari. We are so glad to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Abhik. It's a pleasure. And it's good to see that, young professionals like you are in this now doing this kind of interviews. So it's great. Happy to be here. You can
Thank
call me
you.
Cams. That's kind of, Kameshwari sounds like, I don't know who that is. That's my name, and I've been known as that for a long time. So um, good to be on the show.
Great. Thank you, Cams. And so the first thing I want to know from you is, with these significant shifts happening in the workplace dynamics over the past few years, how is your industry adapting to navigate this very new, intimidating environment?
Yeah, I think you can say it is intimidating because there are so many changes, and to kind of name a very few of them, it's like literally the environment is changing, the technology is changing, the generations are changing, the world order, like so to speak, the political order is changing, and all of this actually has a bearing on the industry. Now, specifically, given that we are in the business of digital business transformation, you add to that the fact that we are now right in the beginning of the AI revolution, so to speak. As an organization, for us and for the industries in our space, it's sort of almost the internet moment where when internet came in, the kind of change and shift that happened. I think this is the second or the third of that. There were some others like automation and cloud and all of that in the technology industry space, but this is that sort of where we believe at least that everything is going to change from a workplace standpoint, the work itself, and what clients will actually want from us. So obviously there's a lot of change. And so, for us as an organization and for many of the people in our industry, I think we have to consider how we look at all of these things, right? So typically, when we create our people strategy, we definitely take into account the business strategy. Where is this company going? Where are we going? What is the future? What's the short term? What's the long term? And our people strategy, at least at Publicis Sapient, is sort of a 3-year strategy, which we then, revise every year, because most HR initiatives will actually go on for a couple of years. It's not like you can launch a new performance management system today and it is sort of be done in 3 months, right? So our strategy is based on 3 fundamental things. It's based on the person who's at the center of everything that we do. It's based on the environment that we create for the person, which is, it's inclusive, it's holistic, it's somewhere where they can bring their whole self to work. So it's the environment and the experience, which is, how do you create a seamless experience? And technology person expects that, internally also they will have that same technology seamless experience. Similarly, they expect that, when they walk into work, they get the same sort of feeling and environment that is there outside, so everything's fast, there is bite-sized learning, there's things like that. So there's a lot of that's fundamental principles. And then, the work that we do kind of revolves around that. But I think I forgot your question. Why don't you ask me a question again?
It's about, yeah, I think you beautifully answered that question. It was about, how to adapt to this new environment. So great. My next question is, if you could also share some key strategies you're using to foster continuous learning, in this workplace and maintain a digitally skilled and agile workforce.
Yeah, remember I said when I started that we put the person at the center. When we put the person at the center of everything that we do, then basically, in a digital world, which is what Sapient is, the kind of work that we do, our people have to be constantly at the front end of every technology that is available. Now, so what we look for is not necessarily, do they know Java and do they know .NET and microservices and this and that. What we look for is actually creating the environment where the learnability is very high. So, it's not like, I need to know this today, because, you need to kind of keep changing, right? So I think for us, the biggest thing that we focus on is the learnability for the individual. I think the second thing is the access. So, if when someone wants to learn something, then it is available to them. So, how do you create a platform for learning where there is learning available on demand? And then it's the medium, like how is this platform available? So, and traditionally we have a lot of like what you would call, classroom learning, cohort-based learning. You kind of get together in a classroom. I think there is still place for that. But, how do you do a Netflix style learning program? How do you create something where the person can learn at their own pace? How do you create something where you can use a AI chatbot assistant to say, I'm looking for information on this, what do I need to do? Like, what course can I take? Because you have so many courses, most organizations will have like a plethora of things. So you have that. So that's the medium of how you give the training. I think the last thing is also to say that, all this is to what end? Like people want to grow, right? You want to go from one level to the next level to the next level. So then that is what we call curated learning. And it's, we create learning boards, which tell people that, okay, if you're here and if you want to go there, then here's what you kind of have to do, to build your skill level. So there is all kinds. So if you see, um, it's not one simple thing. It's kind of a series of things that you have to do to make sure that your workforce is, you're creating a learning organization where your workforce is constantly engaged in learning, and I'd say that 2024, we had, I'd say 96% of people, unique people across the organization who engaged in learning. So, you're not necessarily telling them you have to do, 18 hours of learning or 25 hours of learning or whatever, right? We are saying do what you have to do. It's all available. We've provided everything. So, go ahead and do it. So I think that's our approach to keeping the workforce upskilled.
Great, that's wonderful. So, how are you employing engagement strategies also, especially when we talk about remote and hybrid work setups right now?
So there's two questions, and I'll separately answer them because, I think let me answer the hybrid one first, because see, the thing is, when COVID came, right, everyone had to like literally overnight, you move from X to then you became Y, and everybody went home. So, we obviously had a lot of adjustments to do at that time. I'm very proud to say that, it was almost seamless, both the IT support and our people, I think, kind of literally sort of came together, to create that thing of saying, let's not make this into a thing where we have to be in an office to work together. But that was a good thing for that time. But as an organization, we've always been flexible. I like to use the word flexible because, even before COVID, we let people do the work that they wanted from where they wanted. Which is to say that, I might have a director of technology in Chennai, who's working with the team in Bangalore, or someone's in Chandigarh, and then, they were working with the teams in Gurgaon. Because we are an organization that is actually globally connected. So, you have a lot of clients and teams in other regions like North America and the UK and India. So your teams are sort of, operating virtually to a large extent. So this was it's something that we were doing before as well. So, flexibility was the central idea. So when COVID happened, we just earlier, let's say 5% of our people were working from home, then 100% became working from home. Now we want to shift the pendulum back, right? So most organizations are doing that.
Right.
Which is to say that, okay, you know what, there is something lost if you don't come back into the office, which is, all those new people who join you don't get the level of engagement, don't get the level of coaching. They cannot see and imbibe just through osmosis. So we would like people to be back in an office, like, many other organizations. However, I'll say the approach has been different. We are not forced people to come in. We've kind of adopted a more gradual approach. We are still providing opportunity for people to work from what makes sense for them. So that continues to be there. But we are now going to emphasize more on working together in an office. So that being said, so therefore the approach to engagement it will change, and has changed over time. So during the COVID years, we created a lot of virtual strategies of how you kind of engage with each other. But now that we will be back in the office and more people are coming back to the office, there's a lot more engagement that happens at an office level. Now, those are, oriented around interest groups. They'll be oriented around support groups, like caregiving groups or, parents groups, or, oh, you have this hobby, let's do this. Those are the side interests. Then there'll be work groups. You're working for this client, you need to come together to an office to figure out what's the solution you're building for the client. So you kind of create those situations. So there's a lot of the work-oriented and interest-oriented engagement strategies. But, in my view, engagement doesn't happen just because of that. You have to surround it. I said earlier about holistic well-being. So we have a lot of orientation around well-being of the person, whether it's through policies, it's through process, it's through support groups. Like, of course, everybody has an employee assistance program, but we have something called a mental well-being ambassadors. So there is a lot of the stuff around inclusion, stuff around diversity, equity, kind of thing, to make sure that everyone has an equal voice in coming. So it's our happiness survey. We do a happiness survey to figure out, how people are being engaged. Has elements across all of these that I just described, right? Whether it's the work, whether it's the environment, whether it's the well-being, whether it's the inclusion, whether it's the just the pride that people feel in an organization. We kind of combine all that, and happy to say that our happiness score has more or less remained steady at 4 on 5, which is kind of really very good over the past, I'd say, 4 or 5 years. So
That's
I hope
great.
that I
So,
hope that reflects.
so you were talking about diversity. So, I also want to, like request you to, throw some more light on, your entire diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda.
So, now diversity, equity, inclusion has been an agenda for organizations from a very long time, and the way organizations have gone about it is in very different ways. And, some have said we need to have quotas, some have said we need to create the environment, some have said, many things. The way we are right now, I think when we talk about DEI and DEI strategy, it's not really about what we do, it's about who we are, which means it's there in every agenda. So while we do have a diversity, equity, inclusion like team and leader and global and everything, it is everybody's business. So whether you include it in a person's OKRs, because as a leader you're supposed to kind of have a certain level of diversity. Two, whether you create support groups and what we call the communities for people to kind of come together on different orientation and subjects. The work that we do in diversity, equity, and inclusion kind of goes the whole gamut. So, whether right from talent acquisition to talent development to engagement to growth to everything, it is a part of every process. So how are you hiring? How are you taking out biases in hiring? How are you growing the people? How are you looking at your promotion numbers? How are you making sure that there is no bias in that? Like what we realized recently is there's a lot of anxiety in our young population, especially the ones who've come in during COVID. We've got people with 2-3 years of experience, and there's a big struggle, for those people as they think about engaging just with life. Life's become a little more complicated, no, right now. So life, work, everything, how do they come together? So creating those support groups for them. So I'd say, then we have, obviously the most obvious one is development, which is we have women's development. We have focus on the LGBTQI development. We have focus on PWD development. So there's we do this across the spectrum. So if you it's kind of, now so ingrained in everything that we do. So while we have a strategy that talks about, um, equitable culture and inclusive leadership. So these are all sort of fundamental and foundational to who we are. And it's there in our purpose, to help people thrive in the bare pursuit of next. And, collaborative inclusion is part of our values. It's not today, these values are there for the last 30 years. So it is always there. And so, it just becomes a lot more stronger.
Absolutely. So I'm also very excited to know from you your take on this new generation, the Gen Zs, entering the workforce. And as per your observations, how do their expectations differ from those of previous generations?
Yeah, we did a lot of research because, it's true. 80, I'd say about 85% of our people are sort of millennials, and then now they'll become, I don't know what comes after millennials, Z and then alpha, right? This like that's going to happen. Um, because, IT industry is such that there are a lot of young people in the workforce. So 85% are kind of quite young. I'd say the expectations, if I were to be really specific, right? I think they expect a lot of autonomy. I think they expect a lot of freedom to do what they want to do. I think they have a big focus on environment and how organizations are treating the environment. I think they want a very well-being and well-balanced life. They don't want to only be doing the work. So there's a lot of these but they are also anxious. They also subject to, I'd say the emotional stability is a bit, fragile, I'll say. So there's a combination of all these factors that we therefore have to build in. Everything that we're doing around well-being and inclusion and everything kind of takes these factors into account. The fact that, we have something called Ecologique, which is a environment-based BRG or business resource group, it allows for people to kind of engage in that. The fact that, as policies, and it's there in our, ethics guidelines, it's there in our sustainability guidelines. There's a lot of that. So there's policy process and, engagement. All of it, again, it's an end-to-end thing. So I love the young generation. I'll give you one example. I went into a early careers, which is the campus group that came. I went to meet them, and they kind of slouch on the seat. They don't sit they all were slouching. So I was like, okay, you know what? It just feels like I need to go to sleep here. So can we all sit up? And they're like, why, ma'am? First of all, they say ma'am. We don't say ma'am in the office, but why, ma'am? It's okay, ma'am. I was like, okay. Then someone's wearing slippers. I said, that's not really good attire to wear in an office. And why, ma'am? So it's a lot of whys. Right, it takes but they have so much energy and so much joy. I love to be with young people, and it teaches you a lot. You kind of, I think, um, become less serious, and that's a good thing.
So, and finally, I think, what are the biggest challenges you face in the talent acquisition space? And how do you respond or plan to respond to them?
See, I said earlier that the um, the landscape of learning has gone up so fast. I don't think it is reasonable to expect that whoever comes in will come with everything that you want them to know.
Yeah.
So I think there are some obvious skills where there is a shortage, whether they are cloud or DevOps and data and data science. And those are the kind of skills we need for the AI work that we do. Um, but at the same time, I think, what we look for, like I said earlier, is learnability. So they will have some base, and then they will have the ability to learn. And so then, we kind of focus more on the training and getting them up to speed with the kind of work that we need to be doing for our clients. So I'd say, talent acquisition has always been a bit of a, challenge, because we as an organization working at the leading edge of technologies. So that's always in short supply. But, we have a good engine to kind of, hire and train and then deploy. So it's a methodology that we've done over the last 20-25 years. So that's fine. I think the one thing I do see now as a specific thing during post-COVID is people are far more used to working from home. Um, and they don't want to like get out of their tables and kind of out of their homes and come to the office. I think that will be a challenge in the future. Earlier we had access to talent across all the you know big country like India. Now you may actually face something in kind of moving people back into wherever you have an office. So it could potentially be a challenge, but again, like I said before, right, we have flexibility, and we have the ways in which you manage that talent pool. So I mean, I think it's a combination of factors. Good talent will always be hard to find.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you so much, Cams, for joining us today. I am taking away huge doses of learnings from this conversation, and I'm sure our viewers will feel the same way. And to our viewers, do not forget to tune in for our next episode, where we will continue to explore trends and transformative ideas shaping the future of work. That's something that doesn't seem so far anymore. And we'll meet again. Thank you.